There is an online platform here in the country that seeks to promote friendship between Koreans and their African neighbors. On Issues and Insiders today, we learn about African voices in Korea. Welcome to Thursday's edition of Issues and Insiders. I'm Min Sunhee. Today we have two panelists from Africa currently residing here in South Korea for their thoughts on bilateral ties and more. For this, I have Dela GBADAGO, a chemical engineer at Inha University here in the studio. Dela, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
I also have Hussaina Abdullahi, an IT consultant with us. Hussaina, welcome to the studio.
Thank you for having me.
Right, Dela, let's start off then with some details about the initiative African Voices in Korea. What is it, when did it start, and who are some of its members?
Okay. African Voices in Korea, basically called AFRICANVOIC. It's actually a platform that started when the world was grappling with COVID-19 virus. And we thought that it will form a coalition of Korean and African youth to be able to create exchanges and to also create a voice for the Africans in Korea. Because oftentimes than not, we have Africans being spoken for. And we thought that we are the primary sources of our information. And so it will be good for us to share our own issues, our own problems, our own histories, and how it is best told by us. And so in 2020, we started this movement. And in August of the same year, we launched the event. And we have active Korean and African youth on our platform. So basically, that's what we are about.
Right, so it was initiated back during the pandemic then?
Yes.
Right. And Hussaina, what have been some of perhaps your contributions to this initiative as well as your gains from it?
I'd say my contribution to this initiative was in the initial days when it started in 2020, where myself, Dela, and another friend called Mel, we created this weekly program called Day One Africa, where we had live broadcast on Facebook and we discussed issues or current affairs that's going on in Africa to share our opinions and make more informative conversations about the happenings. And people who are in Korea, both Koreans and Africans, were watching and leaving comments on what they thought. So that's my contributions, or our contribution back then. And the gains would be mostly the people. Like, I made lifelong friends from having these meetings and activities with people, so I would say that's the gain for me.
Is this particular program still going on?
Unfortunately, it's not, because like we had it for a short while and then one of the members left Korea, so yeah, and everyone got busy, so it's not going on. But while it lasted, it was fun.
Right, I see.
Yeah.
Dela, could you share with us some of perhaps the regular activities spearheaded by African Voices in Korea to perhaps promote bilateral interests as well as interactions, of course?
Sure. So to say that after 2020, we haven't been actively engaging, but within the same period, we've created some sort of good, let me say, impression on our activities. And one of them was that we had this small in-house African successful youth in Korea sort of workshop where we introduced how to navigate the Korean cultural space in terms of business amongst the Korean Africans that attended. And we had this section on child pornography, which is actually a very significant issue on the African continent by foreign agencies that try to use children's images to get funds in the name of helping the African continent. So that was something that we actually tackled. And we've also been an integral part of the Korean African Foundation Youth Forum, where we became the bridge when the world was really challenging and they didn't know how to navigate the whole COVID space. And so AFRICANVOIC came in there. Myself and Hussaina, we actually represented significantly in those events, creating a bridge between the African youth and the Korean youth, and creating a common platform and a common way forward. And it has been one of the bases on which the KAF now stands to have its own major programs for the Korean and African youth. And I want to say that this event has been very successful because of our partnership with African Insight. African Insight is an NGO based in Korea that helps, and it's been the mother organization that has supported AFRICANVOIC from the beginning. So basically, this is what we've been doing, and we're actually looking forward to moving in other directions. I have a few plans, but as Hussaina said, we got busy, but we're actually thinking of something to still kickstart and move forward.
Right, I see. And thus far then, Hussaina, what has been the response to the efforts by African Voices in Korea from both the Korean community as well as the African community here in the country?
So to be honest, because we haven't had much events or activities going on recently, there hasn't been a recent response. But back then when we began in 2020 and things were still bubbly and active, there were people who newly came into Korea, and a VOIC event was a way that they were introduced to the African community here. So that was like a gateway to give them like a soft landing. So I would say that response. And also in the Kakao platform, there's sometimes where Korean students reach out to us and ask for, maybe they're looking for African students who speak a particular language. And I believe that that gives them a way to reach these people easier. So I would say those are the responses.
Right, for sure. You're setting up a bridge then between the two parties. Dela, we are looking ahead to the Korea-Africa Summit that is scheduled to start on June 4th. That would be next Tuesday. That being said, could you tell us a bit about Ghana's ties with South Korea, which is where you're from, of course?
Yes. And to say that, are you familiar with Ghana chocolate?
Yeah, I am actually.
All right.
I love it.
Great. So just by that, our relations go way back. Even before we had diplomatic ties with South Korea, Korea actually knew Ghana through the cacao business. And since then, there's been a lot of progress on both sides. And I can say this has been a win-win for both countries. So from 1995 to 2022, trade in Korea and Ghana has actually skyrocketed from, for example, in Korea, Korea's export to Ghana at the time was about 35 million. And as at 2 years ago, that is about 200 million US dollars. And for Ghana, it started from around 9 million, and now it's going to about 35 million dollars. So there's been a progressive increase in trade. And to talk about education, which is why I'm here, there's been a lot of collaborations as that. My university in Daejeon, which is Hambas National University, has an MOU with my university in Ghana. And it is through this MOU that I got the chance to study in Korea and also join the academia and here. There's also been a lot of collaborations on ICT, on health, as well as on defense. So there's been a lot going on between the two countries. Only that, I mean, not many people know about it, but yes, there's been a good, long-standing relationship, which we are still looking forward to push at the Korea-African Summit.
Right, and all that being said, Dela, if I were to ask you about one of Ghana's many merits for South Korean audiences, what would you choose to highlight?
For that, I want to give you two, sorry.
That's fine.
So one for the social aspect, and then two for the business community. So social aspect, I would say that Ghanaians, we are very hospitable. We really accept people. And I say this because you will find in a typical Ghanaian home, plates, bed sheets reserved only for visitors. Sometimes not even our fathers get to use it. That tells you how welcoming we are to foreigners. And that is not only people from abroad, within our own communities who've traveled outside the community. When they come home, we treat them specially to let them know that they are welcome. And so we have a very long-standing, hospitable culture, which people sometimes even say that Ghanaians love foreigners than themselves. I mean, it's just a school of thought. Anyway, and then to talk about the other side, which is the business side, Ghana since 1992, we've had a very stable political, democratic economy. And that has been one of the backbones for economic development. And so businesses that are afraid of doing business in Ghana, there's nothing to be afraid of. We're actually home to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and we are open. And we call ourselves the gateway to Africa, and indeed we are. So anyone who wants to do business in Ghana, they are welcome to do that.
Right, I see. Let's speak then about another gateway to Africa. Hussaina, what can you tell us about Nigeria's ties with South Korea?
Yes, thank you. So Nigeria's ties with South Korea, they're in multiple different fronts, from the private to the public sector. So I think the largest right now is with the private construction company Dela, whereby Dela has been present in Nigeria since 1980, and they've been contracted to work on expanding the gas plant for natural liquefied gas in Nigeria. And with this collaboration between Dela and the Nigerian gas company, there will increase the capacity of Nigeria to export natural liquefied gas by 35%. So I believe that that's a very huge, major bilateral relationship. And with this collaboration, this brings job opportunities for over 10K people who are working all in the project, and also the community. Like a friend who works there mentioned that the community are also seeing a positive impact of it. And on the other hand, the Korean Cultural Center, which is in the capital city, Abuja, is another bilateral relationship that I really love, because it's an extension of the embassy, but that cultural center is giving a lot of Nigerians the opportunity to experience a slice of Korea firsthand by going there to do like K-pop classes, taekwondo classes, learn Korean language, and even just exhibition, try hanbok. And the cultural center, they're very great because they organize lots of events like movie screening and all of this fun stuff. So those two. And the last one I would like to highlight is the KOICA, whereby the Korean agency, Nigerian public service workers, they can apply to study in Korea for almost 2 years, like a master's program in the field that they're working in. And once they come to Korea, work on their master's, do research, then they return and continue working back in Nigeria. Yeah, so those are relationships that the ties that I recognize from Korea and Nigeria.
Right. And what can you tell us about some of the appealing aspects of Nigeria?
So for me, the most appealing would be the food and the music, because that's something I really enjoy music, and lately Afrobeats has been emerging in the world as to mainstream, and I feel food and music is the easiest way to share a culture with a newcomer, like showing them this is what we enjoy, this is what entertains us, and these are the tastes that we enjoy. So Nigerian jollof rice for sure is at that's the #1 that I'll put out there. And our musicians, even lately I've been hearing Nigerian music around Korea in some places, which is quite delightful, because when I initially came in 2015, I could not hear it. It was very hard, but now even cafes play some Nigerian music sometimes. Yeah, so those are the aspects I would share first. And then I would also like to share like our culture and like traditional tribal practices, not the practice itself, like because we have multiple tribes, and just being able to experience their culture, their art, their dance, this way to introduce Koreans to how diverse the country Nigeria is. Yes, so those are the aspects that I would like to share.
Right. Dela, does African Voices in Korea have perhaps a lineup of special events to mark the upcoming Korea-Africa Summit?
Unfortunately, we do not.
Right. Then could you tell us a bit about some of the plans that you have ahead to perhaps expand the work of African Voices in Korea?
Oh, yes. Actually, I have prepared an elaborate plan that I'd wanted to discuss with Africa Insight, which happens to be our mother organization. And this includes about, I think, 10 different activities that I'm looking forward to upscale for AVOIC. And one of them is actually inter-Africa interactions. You know, it is interesting that some of us Africans know little about our own continent. Yeah, so whilst we're here as diasporans, it is a way of, you know, getting together to know more beyond our own small countries. And so one of those is to interact with our own people, get to understand the different cultures that we have on the continent, and share that with the Korean community. Because once you want to share a continent, it's not only about Ghana, it's about Nigeria, Tanzania, Kenya, and all the other countries. And so if I know something about this country, it helps me share the culture and share good exchange, people-to-people exchange. So that's one of them. And another one is for us to create a business network. Oftentimes, I know we are here because of economic, activities, mostly, because I'm working, and definitely there should be some inflow and outflow of capital. And so using that network, we could create some hub within the African community to be able to channel the resources that we have in Korea within the community. Because I do not understand why a Ghanaian, for example, comes to Korea, is trying to start up a small company, and then has to go through all the different layers when somebody successfully has done that over the years. We could tap those already established knowledges to get us faster to, or to pace up with how economics are actually moving across the world. So these are some of the things that I have actually tabled to discuss for AVOIC going forward.
Right, I see. And Hussaina, perhaps I should have asked this at the start of the program. Let's go on a bit on your personal story here to the country. What brought you to Korea?
Yeah, I get this question a lot from Koreans because they're always like, why Korea? So for me, the short answer would be I was awarded the Global Korean Scholarship in 2015 and came to Korea to study my undergrad. But way before then, might be cliche, but I was watching Korean drama when I was in middle school. So that was my first introduction to Korea. And I was aware, oh, there's this country and they have this very interesting like hanbok, and those things really caught my eye. So when I was in high school, the Korean Cultural Center that I mentioned, they were trying to get high schoolers to be more aware of Korea because they're trying to promote Korean culture. So they gave us some books about Korea, like tourism, to learn more. And I was loving all the pictures in the books, and that made me to be active with the center and found out about the Global Korea Scholarship. And that is how I got linked and ended up coming to Korea. Yes.
It is amazing. And what brought you to Korea, Dela?
So I would say that Korea...
Why Korea?
So Korea found me.
Korea found you?
Yes. So I was in Ghana, I was working, and then I got a call from my university. Apparently a professor in Korea wanted a master's student. And the professor said, okay, I mean, there's this guy, he's been working with us, and I would want to talk to him if he's interested. So he spoke with me, and honestly, I didn't know about Korea, to be honest. So I Googled the country, and I was amazed. It was the 10th largest economy in the world. I said, wow, what country is this? And then I checked, I said, oh, Daewoo. I know Daewoo, I know Kia, I know Hyundai. And they're actually from this country. So I got even more interested. And I said, okay, of course, I want to give it a try. So long story short, that's how
And that's how you're here.
Yes.
So 7 years ago, people in Ghana were not very much aware of South Korea. Is it different now?
I wouldn't say it's different. Actually, so about a month ago, I saw this Reddit thread. So somebody was asking, what is Korea-Africa Summit? I know about Korea drama, I know about, K-pop, but I'm not sure there is anything there for Africans to go there for a summit. So it was my first time to respond on the Reddit. And then I went there, I'm like, okay, yes, I was like you, some years back, because I knew of K-drama. Before I came to Korea, even before my call to come here. And so there is enlightening, of course, but it is not as I would expect it. But to give you how progressive it's been, there's this Korean skin company called Good Skin, and just 2 years ago, they had only about $1,500 sales in Ghana, and as we speak, they have almost $200,000 of sales.
That is remarkable.
Very. So it tells you that there's been a very speedy sort of knowledge about Korea, but still, there a lot of more work needs to be done.
Right, I see. And Hussaina, based on what you've told me so far, I'm assuming that in Nigeria there is much awareness of Korea and its entertainment.
Absolutely. In Nigeria, the Korean entertainment from, let's say, 2011-12 has been gradually growing to the extent that it is mainstream amongst young people in Nigeria. When I tell Koreans that Nigerians watch drama and enjoy K-pop a lot, they're always surprised. And even to give an example, so my sister in the city where she studies, she said like there was a BTS ARMY meetup where they hung out and listened to songs, did karaoke. So even I myself was surprised because although I know that Korea is very well known and mainstream because people are consuming dramas and K-pop, I didn't realize that even places that were not the capital or big cities also had a vibrant community that enjoyed Korean content. Yes. So
it's very humbling to know.
Yeah.
To know that the Korean culture is reaching so far beyond borders.
Yes, it really has.
Dela, what would you propose then to ensure more active exchanges between Korea and Africa in the future?
So I want to give this short story. There was one time I wanted to try import to Korea. And then there's the yam, it's a tuber, it's like a potato. And I checked that it wasn't allowed in Korea. But the same yam goes to the US, comes to Korea with no problem. So I got curious, and I wanted to know why. And then in the regulations, there were a lot of forbidden, prohibited goods that could come through Ghana. So to say simply, I think a lot of the rules need to be sort of, let me say, re-looked at to be able to extend trade agreement. And given that Africa, we are by far the largest trade area, that's the African Continental Free Trade Area, and with about $3.4 trillion cumulative GDP, we actually the future. And so for Korea to get this done, I'm looking at Korea going into areas of agriculture where they could implement the green revolution that they had in the 1960s in Africa on large scale. So we have huge large-scale arable land that could be used to create crops across the African continent and also for export. And we have a lot of smart farms in Korea. These farms could be implemented large-scale in Africa, where the weather condition is actually very good and there are no 4 seasons. So we have just 2 seasons, rain and then dry. So that gives a lot of opportunity. Then ICT, which is one of Korea's stronghold, and Africa's ICT infrastructure has actually developed significantly over the years. And we're looking at Koreans not just exporting to Africa, but establishing hubs in Africa, where we can have this development going on. Now, we have lithium on the continent, and EVs are becoming the order of the day. So Korean companies like Hyundai and Kia could leverage that. We have energy transitioning, and we have abundant sunlight. Solar companies or solar panel companies could use Africa as a large-scale production hub, where we have year-round access to the sun, testing, production, validation, and then export. So these are some areas that I think we can improve, and not to forget, most importantly, the public diplomacy. There are still Koreans who think Africa is one country, unfortunately. There are.
Hopefully that is going to change during the Korea-Africa Summit.
I am hoping so.
Next month.
And I think the government is doing well.
Right.
I mean, creating public diplomacy here and there. But Africa must be on the public channels of Korea, significantly talking about our culture, the uniqueness of our people, and the beauty of the continent.
Right, for sure.
Thank you.
Well, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for this edition. But Dela, as you said, hopefully all the issues you've raised up will be spoken about during the summit coming up next month. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you for having us.
And Hussaina, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, well, that ends this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow. That is Friday.